Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. I am Ayuela. Thank you for joining us, and I'm happy to have you join us this morning on the program.
Indeed, we are super excited to have you on the program this morning. I am Zainab Bella.
Well, today is Tuesday, the 13th of December. We're inching closer to Christmas.
Yes, and we are super excited, in anticipation for the 25th of December. There's going to be so much food and drinks, even though people are not really doing much of the visiting, because of the whole...
And it is in this period that we begin to see, battles, in families, because of Christmas gifts and Christmas clothes. Parents, or I would say mostly fathers, are put under unnecessary pressure to get children, Christmas clothes and all of that. Well, I just hope that people do not focus more on that.
I know your son is already putting you in your pressure, isn't he?
Well, not exactly, but not the child. Usually, for me, the child is not really the source of the pressure. It's the mother. The mother don't want to hear anything. It's just you have to get the best of the best. So it's normal. But again, we would always advise that people should not put themselves under undue, pressure. Trying to get Christmas gifts. I mean, you can do as much as you can.
The little that you have.
And yes, it's a season of love. So hopefully, yes, we'll continue to spread the love. Even though we were supposed to spread love all year round.
It's been quite a year, with the whole COVID-19 pandemic and all of that. Well, today on the program, we'll be looking at, the aviation sector amid the whole travel ban and what, the aviation sector stands to lose both internationally and locally. And we'll also be looking at the Electoral Amendment Bill, which is before the President, awaiting assent, as sent by the lawmakers, talking about the National Assembly. And we have Jide Ojo, who will be joining us in the studio to talk about this and more. Well, for now, let's take a breather and look at the world history on this day, 13th of December. Well, there you have it, today in history. Now, the one that got my attention is the Nigerian professional boxer, Dick Tiger, who died at the age of 42. Many people will say, well, gone too soon, but
unfortunately, we lost him. This is someone that was making Nigeria proud, you know, through boxing and all of that. So it's quite sad, you know, it's a sad fact that we have to remember on a day like this. Well, let's take a look at the national dailies. This time around, we have Ben Shema, Director, Voice of Nigeria, and he will be talking to us about the stories that made the headlines this morning on the show after this breather. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
All right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television, reaching you live from our studios here in the nation's capital city, Abuja. Now let's take a look at some of the stories making headlines on the dailies this morning, starting with the Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story there, Nigerians to pay more taxes, tariffs. That's according to the federal government, and the riders, prices of drinks, tobacco, stamp duty to rise. Subsidy removal, additional taxes would aggravate economic woes. That's according to experts. And on page 29 of the Daily Trust newspaper, Obasanjo to Nigerians, don't expect anything more from Buhari. And on page 18, you'd see federal government rakes in 227 billion naira as MTN Mafab win 5G license. Still on page 29, you'd find COVID-19 unvaccinated corps members barred from NYC camps. You'd also see on page 6 of the Daily Trust newspaper, declare state of emergency on terrorist enclaves. Tambuwa urges President Buhari. And on page 31, you see 20 killed in Bauchi auto crashes. Like Facebook, Zoom to start charging 7.5% VAT from Nigerian users. On page 4, you'd see Nigeria, UAE lose millions daily as diplomatic road deepens. More airlines reject Nigerian passengers to Dubai. You'd also see among the riders, countries pushing for self-interest, says Dawn, and consultations ongoing. That's according to Foreign Affairs Ministry. These are some of the stories on the Daily Trust newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Punch this morning, and the lead story there talks about 3,125 killed, 2,703 abducted in 11 months. VIPs knock federal government. You'd find that on page 2 with the riders. Match words with action. All not well. Obasanjo, Sultan, ACF, others tell FG. Buhari prefers traveling abroad to visiting victims of banditry, says Northern Khan. Nigeria must trash 1999 constitution to overcome security challenges, Gani Adams. And then you would also see the picture there showing you suspected miscreants, hoodlums and drug peddlers posing as Okada riders during an enforcement operation at the 7th Avenue, Festac Town, Lagos, by members of the Lagos State Environmental and Special Offense Unit yesterday on Monday. You would also find other stories there saying, police grill journalists for 7 hours over anti-corruption story. Professionals present 22 million naira equity government from fee to Bamidele Senator confident. Senator is confident, yes. And that's on page 19. The next story, student set ablaze by attackers being forced to join cult. And that's Uniosun. And that's on page 5. Then the next one at the bottom, NYC makes vaccination compulsory for prospective corps members in 2022. Osun farmer released in Ekiti Forest. Abductors collect cash, cigarettes and rings. A strike will be indefinite, won't end until an agreement, until all agreements are fulfilled. That's according to ASU. So these are the stories that made the headlines this morning on The Punch.
Okay, let's take a look at some other stories on the Nation newspaper this morning. The lead story there, travel ban. Nigeria, UAE diplomatic row escalates. And the riders, airlines ordered not to fly Nigerians into Dubai. Flight bans will be sorted next week. On page 1 of the Nation newspaper, Lowell, 13 million naira, 8 million naira allowances not enough for lawmakers. Oh, wow. You find the details of that story on page 1 of the Nation newspaper. You'd also see NNPC plans gas supply increase to crash price. And on page 3, you'd find MTN Nigeria, Mafab wins spectrum to deploy 5G. Bandits kill 10 in fresh attack on community. These are some of the lead stories on the Nation newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at The Guardian. This morning, we're leading with the story that says travel ban. FG puts retaliation on hold as row with UAE gets messier. You'd also see the riders. Government, we are initiating diplomatic steps to resolve restrictions with UK, Canada, Saudi Arabia. UK to reduce travel restrictions, scrap red list this week. Consider impact of reciprocity actions on businesses, SMEs. Yusuf advises federal government. Fully vaccinated South African president tests positive for COVID-19 after visits to Abuja. So, well, talking about the effectiveness, of the vaccines now, this is also raising questions there. Buhari sends get well message to Ramaphosa, urges Nigerians to get vaccinated. Britain reports first Omicron death. 496 Nigerians receive booster shots, and then there you'll see below that the pictures of leaders of Nigeria and UK, and then you see also stop politicizing insecurity. Obasanjo, Sultan, others warn leaders. EFCC, NYC ban unvaccinated employees, core members. Nigeria issues 5G licenses to 2 operators. You see also 10 killed, several injured as bandits storm market in Plateau community. Wike sacks health commissioner for hosting dental council without approval. So these are the major stories today on the dailies. Okay. Like we told you, we have Ben Shema in the studio, Director Training from Voice of Nigeria. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Yes.
All right. And now let's begin, with the lead story on the Daily Trust newspaper that states Nigerians to pay more taxes, tariff, according to the federal government. Now, the federal government is saying that the taxes and the tariffs realized will be used to fund, important infrastructure like health and education. But experts are saying this is not a right move at this time. What are your thoughts about that?
Yes, I want to juxtapose that. I want to put it side by side. The news coming from the Senate President. Allowances, senators 13 million, reps members 8 million. That is not enough for them. Now we're also having that on the other side, the federal government saying tariffs, taxes are not enough, therefore they have to be jacked up. We pray that they target luxury goods. What are these luxury goods? We can do without cigarettes. Tax it very well. All those who have jets parked at the airports, they are not servicing the nation. Tax that very well. But a situation where you begin to increase even market rates. Someone wants to enter a community market to sell a cock, chicken, sell grains. You tax them. And when you even look at, before you even enter the market, some security agencies, especially market days. Check when you see motorcycles coming in. You begin to collect illegal taxes here and there. That should be stopped. Yes, the federal government can actually increase taxes on luxury goods, but not those that help to sustain the daily living of the common Nigerians. Beer, yes, you can see that, yes, people get frustrated, no jobs, no this, but you don't see beer industries closing down. Why is it so? We can tax them so that we can also reduce this consumption. So all those things that are just luxury that you can do even without, I think they should be taxed. But you can't tax water purification, water sanitization and all that. You don't increase tariff on water because it's commonly used by everybody. But cigarette is not a common commodity for everybody to use.
All right. Well, it's very important that we, look at that, vis-a-vis the proposal to remove the fuel subsidy as well, in the coming year. So you have this, increase in taxes, and then we're also taking off the fuel subsidy. Isn't it double wahala, if I may?
As we said in Nigeria.
Yes, if I may use that.
And that's why there's always this, when you ban a commodity from entering into Nigeria, then there has to be import substitution. You are substituting it with what? That you are producing back home. Okay, you say we are going to ban importation of rice, for example. Therefore, let us have a KB Lagos rice, Leke rice, so to speak. But you can see what the herders, farmers clashes are also entailing in terms of food security. So when we're talking of subsidy or no subsidy, first of all, like I said, when you say you are banning import, then there has to be substitution back home. Our refineries operating at optimal level, because if you check, they don't. And if therefore you're going to remove a subsidy, I mean, it's like you go buy a gallon of petrol in town, you go to the village, you bought it 5 naira, and you go to the village and now sell it 2 naira. Of course, you're going to be at a loss, surely. And therefore, to stem that or to control it, let the refineries simply work. If we want to make more money, we can export this money to West African countries and many other countries in Africa. Yes, it is doable. It can do it. We can do it.
All right, other issues on the papers that we're looking at, we're seeing the issue of the COVID-19 vaccine is causing a lot of restrictions here and there. Core members are being barred from entering the camps, restrictions on Nigeria from foreign countries. This greatly is going to lead to loss. I mean, we're already losing millions of naira daily, as a result of this restriction, talking about UAE, UK, Canada, and the rest of them. What's the implication of this, for our economy?
For our economy, honestly, it's going to suffer. It's going to suffer, definitely. Because this Yuletide period, people come in, people go out. And Britain in particular, you can imagine the number of Nigerians that go to that place for vacation. Just like Nigeria too, you can imagine how many people who come in for vacation. So the diplomatic route, they should settle that as fast as possible. After all, a phone call can make a difference. You are talking of United Arab Emirates. You can see, look, the way they've opened that place. This is an Arab nation, but you can see that the Israeli Prime Minister, as we are talking, is in that country right now. They're talking of diplomacy. Those days that brothers are on their jugular veins trying to kill one another, to them it's over. We're talking of survival. Let human beings survive. Enmity of the past should not be the thing. And if United Arab Emirates is it's a kind of a center for commerce, and we think that Nigeria can participate and also bring in investment from those areas. I mean, look at the aviation. Therefore, I think we should not just stick to our guns. No, I'll not shift an inch. And they say no, they will shift an inch. It doesn't augur well in terms of development, in terms of trade, in terms of relationship, in terms of goods being ferried here and there, and of course it entails on humanity. When we say there's no permanent friend, not permanent enemy, we're talking of existence, survival of nations, survival of citizens, and therefore I think there should be that symbiotic relationship, give and take. Give me, I take, and I also give you, you take.
Just as you've earlier mentioned, we both need each other, to survive. But some experts are saying that these decisions, taken by both Nigeria and the UAE is in the interest, of both our countries.
Sure, when you look at this coronavirus and the new variant, Omicron, Nigerians will have to just be on the guard. If truly it is that serious, of course, and that's why the National Youth Service Corps is saying no vaccination, no service. So that tells you they have to do it. But again, you still have people who are so strict when it comes to their religion. They are sticking on to it, believing that, look, it's the end time, or this kind of a thing. If we take it, it's going to be, Antichrist, or it's just the end of the world. It is not so. See religious leaders who indeed are preachers to you, they are taking them. So, co-members, let's live. And if therefore it's going to affect some other people, that's why the government is saying, if you don't have the certificate, you can't go in. But I frown at the casting of a headline, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa falls sick or is positive after visiting Nigeria. It's because he visited Nigeria that he got it.
In Nigeria.
Yes, you can interpret it, and yes, after the visit, he went and got it back home. Or it was when he came in here that he got it. The headline, I think, has some subtle meanings that sometimes some people could frown at.
All right, now let's talk about yet another very interesting story. We are seeing that states lost a beat to stop the federal government from deducting the $418 million bailout from state allocations, as being advocated, I would say, fought for by the federal government. What's the implication of this on state revenues? We seem to be on the edge when it comes to revenue, especially at the state level. So these deductions, what's your thought around this?
Well, the federal government is not Father Christmas. If government gave you a kind of a soft loan, if government aided you so that you can invest, so that people can earn reasonable lives, reasonable living, it's time for you to pay back. Tanko, if you gave me 5 naira, with the hope that I'll pay you next week, 2 days to next week, when I see you around my corner, I know you are reminding me before the day comes. Therefore, if the time comes and I can't pay, if I have the power, of course I can reduce, I can take my money from source. If someone gives you money to give me, yes, you take your money, but I've taken my 5 naira. That is exactly what the federal government is doing, going to a layman's economy. Therefore, if the state governments collect money from the federal government, it is right for them to use that money for what it's meant for. Did you collect in order to pay salaries? Did you collect for infrastructural development? Yes, you do all of that. But again, in terms of this money, where there are no conditions, when you give something, there would be what we call conditions for payment. Exactly. So all those terms, if they are broken, of course, the higher authority will come to bear. So if you go to court and the court says, look, did you or did you not collect this money? Yes, you collected. Are you not supposed to collect? Did the federal government say it's a dash? No, they just said, look, bail out. I'll bail you out for this period. It's just a kind of, in economy, they call it quick fix. You have a problem, so you take this, solve that, and bring back my money.
All right. Yeah, we are seeing also another, shocking revelation here. We are learning that 3,125 people were killed, 2,703 abducted in 11 months. That's according to a report. There's apparently people who are not happy, with this trend, in the country. So, with regards to the state of insecurity in the country, are we really matching our words with action, and are we taking the necessary steps that needs to be taken?
Well, honestly, Tanko, you see, that number might even be a conservative number, because we're a country so short of statistics. And what about those who are also killed by HIV/AIDS, malaria? Look at, some very little things that would have been solved by Nigerian government. You don't see them resolved. Now, look at a situation where you wake up, instead of you to hear companies are being commissioned here and there, projects are being commissioned here and there. When you hear the headline about 50 people have been killed, the next thing is for you to just ask, where this time around? It's like it's becoming a tradition. It shouldn't just be. Sanctity of life should just be it. And a situation where we're seeing invaders, kidnappers going into monarchs' palaces and grabbing royalty to receive money. Who are the people who give these blessings? These are the ones. Is it the religious? They are not spared. Is it the soft targets? Soft targets, you go to primary schools, kidnap babies, and all you want is money. They give you this money, you want to use it to also protect your own children. The contradiction is just that too much. And when a group says they've been neglected in Nigeria, then you don't unleash your frustration on your fellow innocent people. If there should be, people should come to the round table, discuss some of these things. These kidnappers, many of them have always been caught, and they say, look, they've been sponsored. So who are these sponsors? It's left for security agencies via their intelligence to begin to work and see who indeed are these sponsors. Then you also look at the sources of these arms. When you're talking of ECOWAS, they say economic community of West African states. You just need a community like a village. I don't have to take permission to enter your house, enter your compound, enter this, in as much as I'm not a nuisance in your house or even your sitting room or bedroom,
to address, the whole security challenges, some elites have suggested that there should be some form of review of the 1999 Constitution.
Absolutely, I saw that in Ghanaian Adams. But you see, the Constitution actually is not the problem, it's the operator. The phone you have, you can use it positively, you can use it negatively.
Isn't the Constitution the problem, especially when people talks about the federal system that we operate in Nigeria? Some of them are saying, look, largely if you look at the roles that the local government, for instance, plays, it has been reduced to almost nothing. It doesn't do anything because it doesn't have responsibilities, that, on it as much as it should. So, for instance, people are talking about taking off some things, some items on the exclusive legislative list, putting it on the concurrent list, just so that states can be more viable, so that they can engage more, so that they can also, do some things, take control of their communities and all of that. So if you look at that, don't you think that is an argument that
concerning that aspect, I have no problem. Yes, let the local governments have their financial autonomy, their political autonomy too, so that they can employ people instead of people looking to turning their faces to state governors who indeed are also turning their faces to the federal government. I have no problem with that. But when the civil war ended, for God's sake, Gowon brought the 3 R's: reconciliation, reconstruction, rehabilitation. The eastern part of the country is still saying that they are lagging behind. Now, this is not the issue of our constitution. The thing is our mindset. There are times we just feel that so area, no, we don't need them. So area, I mean, it is a federation. For God's sake, you have 10 fingers, each 5 on your hand. And which finger is the most useless? There is none. They all are 5. Each has its own function for you. All the parts of your body. Which one will you say, oh, which one will I lose? My ears, my eyes, my nose, my mouth, my tongue? No, they all belong to you. That's how God created you, so that you are a complete human being. But in a situation whereby we feel that some areas, you see, there are big fights. Nobody bothers about them. In some areas, yes, you pretend there are, as if there is no life lost, so to speak. It's not really the issue of the constitution per se, but honestly, the thing of the mind. Okay. Everything is being politicized. Everything. Water supply, fertilizer, and all that.
Okay. In addition to that, there's also calls for declaration of state of emergency. The governor of Sokoto State is re-echoing that. Again, he's urging the president to declare state of emergency on terrorist enclaves. What will be your standpoint on this? Do you think that that's the way to go?
Yes, that's the way to go. But when you say you declare a state of emergency, or you want it, just like the Katsina State governor once said, look, arm yourself and fight these terrorists. T.Y. Benjamin said it long before then. He was almost being crucified. But time has come. Governors are saying, fight these people. But they can't fight with just their tongues. These people are armed, So if you feel that you declare a state of emergency on security or insecurity or against the terrorists, yes, so be it. But in doing so, also begin to have what they call the community policing. Train these people, arm these people, you know them. And when you know them, they also know the bushes. They know their terrains. When these people are moving from Kebbi, these ones are moving from Niger State, these ones are moving from Kaduna State, this one Sokoto, Zamfara. Of course, you know their territorial boundaries. And by the time you do a coordinated, one single kind of approach, one-stop kind of a thing, you see that you make it. That is how I'll just define my own state of emergency on terrorism. You don't just say the president declare and he sits in the villa and says, I hereby declare, and thereafter what? So if you declare, yes, which I support, arm the people you want to train, the civil populace, you select them by whatever name. If you like, you call them KB Vanguard, Katsina Frontiers, just name it. They are legal, and therefore they begin to hold controlled items, AK-47, and that will make it legal, and that is will make them to also face these people. It's because once people hear the sound of an AK-47, of course they know that these people have come. I will not forget my going to some areas in Borno Yobe when at the early area at the times of Boko Haram, when they struck. There were times these Boko Haram guys will mount loudspeakers with tape recorders with sounds of AK-47, pa 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 pa, and once they on that, put the volume very high, people will start running, believing that, yeah, these people have come, not knowing that it was just to scare them away. And I tell you that an armed robber, if he knows you are armed, of course, is also very careful. I support this. Let there be that declaration that these bandits are terrorists. And in doing so, also arm the civil population, train them legally, and of course, it's going to be a thing of the past. And when that is going on, this stick and carrot approach must be there. It's always not the kinetic force. No, there are some, if they see an opportunity, just like the repentant Boko Haram members, they say, look, they were coerced, they were forced, they were recruited, they had no option but to follow. Now they've seen the light. So if you have those people and some are ready to also fight on your side, of course, again, that also, just before we round up, brings me to another issue of,
how important, are these surrendered Boko Haram members are towards in intelligence gathering? Are they helping? Are they giving, what kind of information are they giving our security forces? And isn't it helpful, because, to go by that, we should be able to see some successes recorded, based on the intelligence provided by these persons who have repented.
Yeah, you see, many of them who repented did so genuinely. And you could see them dodging to surrender to the army, even with members of their family, and they provide very useful information. But the army is also not too happy, or the defense authorities are also not too happy. If you check, there was a time they said some of the militants were rejecting meat slaughtered by people who are not former members of Boko Haram, which means that repentance is like
it's questionable.
It's questionable. One snake that is lying down, green snake in green grass, waiting to strike. So in terms of sifting to know who indeed is genuine, the military authorities will have to check all of that. But again, many are still offering useful information, which are being used by the intelligence authorities. And that will also, in terms of map reading, they tell them camps where these people are, even though some of them, they begin to move here and there. And the good thing that we also see is when the Islamic State of West African province, ISWAP, when they begin to clash with Boko Haram, they kill themselves. That is also, we expect that when those fights are going on, it's at that point that the military should just strike. I remember seeing a video clip where two antelopes were busy fighting. Then some lions just stood by, and quickly they swooped on them, and of course the two were gone. So if the military indulges or engages or imbibes that kind of approach, I think so be it. When they know these people are clashing, it's the time they should clash too.
It looks like we have to stop there. It's been quite, interesting getting to review some of the stories on our dailies this morning. Thank you so much for coming on the program. We've been speaking with Ben Shema, a director training from the Voice of Nigeria. Let's take a quick time out. When we come back, the show continues. Stay with us.
Chairman of the committee, James Falike, while welcoming stakeholders, assured that their contributions to the finance bill was important for the success of the 2022 budget implementation. He said the finance bill comes with the yearly budget to enable a full and comprehensive execution to meet the aspirations of both government, the citizens, and the economy in general.
We are here once again to deliberate on the new finance bill that will assist the 2022 budget, and hopefully that as stakeholders who are all gathered, you all have privilege of this bill, which has been made public for our inputs. Today is a day that we expect that you submit all those details to us, defend it, areas where you think that the legislature should look into. We'll be privileged to hear from you before making the law, before presenting this bill on the floor and passing it as a law.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, who was represented by the Minority Leader Ndudu Elumelu, commended the painstakingly input by the Ministry of Finance in putting together a broad-minded reforms that will enhance transparency and accountability. He said this will further block wastages in the system, create employment, and reduce borrowing by government in executing further budgets, amongst others.
Essentially, the 2021 Finance Bill seeks to introduce strategic and broad-minded positive reforms that will engender best practice, statutorily check borrowing by local, state, and federal government, enhance transparency and accountability in the administration in various strata of tax and public revenue generation, while at the same time guaranteeing the interests of the investing public and businesses.
The Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, in a submission says the bill was drafted with inputs from relevant government agencies, including the Federal Inland Revenue Service and the Debt Management Office. She said it was done in line with global best practice with intention to increase revenue and reposition SMEs with several reforms to boost the economy.
Streamlining some provisions relating to agricultural equipment and also providing additional relief, exempting minimum wage earners from paying personal income tax. And the third broad area is tax fiscal responsibility and public procurement. So the Finance Act 2020 amended key tax legislations to enhance implementation of tax reforms and also amended some provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. That was where you made the provision that pegged revenue to expenditure ratio of government-owned enterprises to 50-50, and we've seen significant increase in revenue, non-oil revenue, because of that provision.
The finance bill is expected to guide the implementation and execution of the 2022 budget.
All right, thank you for staying. You're watching Daybreak on Trust Television, and now we'll be having a discussion also about the Electoral Act. Now, as the world eagerly anticipates Africa's most significant election in 2023, policy capture, process manipulation, and geopolitics are defining the electoral framework reform process as veto players exercise their preferences for policy outcomes. Now, within Nigerian context, public confidence in the viability of electoral reforms to address the intractable challenges with Nigerian elections is unquestionable, and then unfortunately this confidence is undercut by political entrepreneurs who are driving the reform process. Now, these actors are determined to substitute public interest for private political gains. Now, when Nigerians await the assent of President Muhammadu Buhari on the past Electoral Act Amendment Bill, report emerged that President Buhari wrote leaders of the two chambers of the National Assembly after refusing to sign the bill into law because of the huge cost of conducting direct primaries, among other reasons. Now, public affairs analyst Jide Ojo joins us in the studio to talk about this. Welcome on the program.
Good morning.
My pleasure.
Yes.
Good morning.
Now
Okay.
it's
All right.
25 days already.
Yeah, today makes it 25
after
days.
sending that Electoral Act to the president. We are yet to see assent. Maybe just give us a highlight of what's been happening, since that transmission.
Well, there's nothing too outrageous going on. It's just that, well, I'm a political scientist, but I'm not a politician. So, in the act of science, you say nothing should stop the president from signing. But in the art of politics, there could be a lot, because he receives advice from different quarters, and it depends on him which advice he wants to listen to or adhere to. Ordinarily, I know there is a lot of anxiety in the public, given the fact that we know the president to be somebody who is very mindful of his legacy. The legacy he wants to leave, he said he doesn't want to live as a failure. And so he signed the National Disability Act in 2019. He increased the salaries and wages of Nigerian police. He recently signed the Petroleum Industry Act. These are legacy laws, that you say, just like we remember Goodluck Jonathan for Freedom of Information Act in 2011. Every president will want to leave a legacy. The burden is on the president to listen to the voice of the people and not of political perennials.
Okay. Now, should in the next 5 days the president refuses, to give assent to that bill, the National Assembly has the veto power, to pass that bill?
They do, but will they exercise it? I doubt. Not under the leadership of the current president of the Senate, Amelawa, and Femi Gbajabiamila in the House, the House Speaker, because they feel the president cannot be wrong. And when you have somebody with that kind of mindset, you don't want to embarrass the president. A veto of the president's, overriding the president's veto is a slap on the face of the president, metaphorically. So you don't want to get to that level. And I believe
but is this about being politically correct, or is this about the interests of Nigerians?
No, what is delaying this whole thing is interest of the political preneurs. That's just the only thing left. Because, you see, Ajia and Ayuba, I followed through this in the last 3 years. In 2018, the president withheld assent on 4 different occasions. That was unprecedented. But it's understood because he wanted a second term. And he doesn't want anything to stand in the way of his second term. So he deliberately, for one reason or the other, there is an attempt by the National Assembly to usurp the INEC power. Then you start doing the issue of cross-referencing error, typographical, clerical error. Then the next thing, after all said and done, by September you say, it's too close to the next election. And ECOWAS protocol says you should not amend the law 6 months to election. Those are very good alibi that he used to retain power in 2019, because what his advisors told him then is that if he signs that law, it may undermine his chances of coming back as the president. And APC is so desperate that they do not want to be a one-term president, because it's a legacy party that was just registered in 2013. They don't want to go down in history as the party that just had, it's just like Islamic Brotherhood in Egypt. Mohammed Morsi was there for less than 2 years before the uprising came, and he was removed by the military, and since then, and this Islamic Brotherhood that been registered in Egypt for over 80 years, never smelled power. Now they got to power, they mishandled it, and the people booted them. I mean, the military booted them. And today we have an Sisi, General Sisi, on his second time. I was in Egypt when we won the first election. But why am I making that inference? I'm making that inference against the background that you see, this issue of second time, the election bid, always make politicians not to be pro-people. Their thought is, what will enhance my chances of winning the next election? But now, the president is serving out his second and final term. What it needs to be remembered is what legacy. If you withhold assent, like I told you earlier, I don't see the National Assembly overriding. Even if they do have the number, they can do it, but they will not do it because it's party interest above people's interest. But let me break it down a bit. This law went through the entire processes. When it was first passed, the mischief was on the part of Senate that said INEC should go get approval from National Communication Commission, NCC, before it will deploy electronic transmission of results. And I wrote against it. I wrote against it because I said a federal executive body recognized by the Constitution cannot be subsumed to the powers of an agency of government that is established by Act of Parliament. You understand? In the hierarchy of law, when you are constitutionally created, you have that protection. The Constitution talked about your membership and all your functions and all of that. Compare that to an Act of Parliament. It's the same thing as when an issue is mentioned in the Constitution and somebody is coming up with a law or a policy. In law, the hierarchy of law puts the constitutional backing over and above an Act of Parliament or a policy of government. But when the public opinion was put on the Senate and they recounted and recommitted the law and passed that controversial section 52(2) in tandem with what the House of Representatives passed, before they now finished their work with conference committee and then eventually passed this last month. The excitement in the civil society space is that this is a responsible and responsive institution. But you see, this whole gamut of, I'm just hearing from you, Ayuba, that the president wrote to the National Assembly about the cost of conducting primaries.
Yes,
I don't think that is true.
In the realms of
I don't think that is true. It may not and it should not be true. It cannot be true. I know it's not true. The reason being that there is only one channel of communication left to the president. He cannot be telling them whatever he needs to tell them about his reservation about that law will be officially communicated.
But doesn't that make him, look anti-democratic?
No, wait. This is it. You know why I was very assertive that it is not true that he wrote to the National Assembly? It's rumor mill, it's grapevine sources that are just insinuating that. I listened to the House of Reps chairman of electoral committee or something, when last week they invited the chairman of INEC he was summoned, and the question was put to him that the INEC has requested for 500 billion to be able to observe the direct primaries, which is the raging controversial issue. And INEC chairman came out abundantly clear that there was no cost to observing direct primaries. They never imputed any cost. And if you listen to what came out last week, the INEC has urged the president to sign says that it has no reservation about any of the provision in that law. That was made public. So if INEC does not have reservation, and mark you, when these processes of lawmaking was going on, a technical committee was set up, made up of INEC, the National Assembly Joint Committee on Electoral Law Reform, as well as the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice was represented. So it was like a tripartite technical committee. And at that level, because you see, what many Nigerians are not averse to, what they don't know, is that every law that is sent to the president for assent, the Constitution has given the president 30 days within which to seek legal opinion. First, all laws are referred to the Office of Attorney General and Minister of Justice. Every law. All. That's statutory. Then, that same bill, not law now, that same bill will be sent to relevant agencies that will be affected by the implementation of that law. Am I communicating? So, first, all laws, all bills goes to the Office of Attorney General for legal opinion of the Attorney General. That's why the Constitution gave the president 30 days. So, now in this case, because it has to do with election, a copy of that bill was sent by the Office of the President to INEC and a copy to the Office of Attorney General. Now we have heard back from INEC that INEC had no reservation, which is the primary implementer of that law. If INEC officially said, or it was leaked, whichever, that INEC has given is okay, it's okay to that law, then unless there is a reservation from the Office of Attorney General, which is why people are very careful that we need to separate the Office of Attorney General from that of Minister of Justice, because that office is held by a politician. So they may be looking at the political, using the political lens. But my own position is this: the president has to sign. He has no choice but to sign. Even if he has reservation, he has to sign, because the internal affairs of Nigeria are ceased to be our internal affairs. A lot of countries have put huge resources to deepening Nigeria's democracy. The US government, the UK government, the European Union, all of them, millions of dollars and euros.
Yes.
But beyond and above that, it's also the how do you show up electoral interest of Nigerians.
Okay, now
if you don't sign.
Now what's the guarantee that this direct primaries that we are talking about will ensure that Nigerians enjoy the dividends of democracy?
Now, very good question. But let me tell you my own stake. My own stake on this is that National Assembly is just being political. They shouldn't have even altered Section 87 of the extant Electoral Act, which actually gave opportunity for direct and indirect primary. Because there is a saying by the British that if it's not broken, you don't fix it. The law is there, and parties have been left with their discretion to choose whether to
but so perhaps leaving that discretion, maybe seems to give that room for people to go for, the indirect primaries.
But
instead.
mark you, in my column in The Punch last week, I did write, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, I wrote that whether you operate direct or indirect primary, every of these primary system or procedures can be frauded, can be manipulated, is prone to fraud. And I put examples out there. Look, this so-called direct primary, which some have said is taking the party to the grassroots, to the members, it can be manipulated. And let me tell you pressure points along the value chain. First, nomination fee. How much? In Osho and Ekiti State forthcoming election next year, the APC has put the nomination fee at 22.5 million. That is for each of the aspirants. This is non-refundable. 2, there will be screening committee, isn't it? They will say all aspirants should come and face a screening committee. If they want to deal with you, Ayuba, at that screening committee, your nomination your aspiration can be thwarted. They will just find one very good reason why you cannot be allowed to run elections. And you have seen in Anambra, ahead of that election, that is what led to the crisis in Abga. A young man, Umeoji, Chukuma Umeoji, who is a serving member of House of Reps, was screened out during the screening of Abga. And the man felt bitter, having paid millions of naira nomination.
Which is a party that actually operates direct primaries.
So at the end of the day, he went and formed a parallel executive and went to Jigawa to get an injunction to recognize it. And that was why, up to 3 weeks to that, the November 6th election, Chukwuma Soludo was not on the list. Then, even the one that brought in Babajide Sanwo-Olu in Lagos, if you see the way they dealt with Ambode in the last primary, which was direct in Lagos, where even the chairman of the committee that was sent from Abuja said there was no primary, only for him to do a voter face the following day on his way to the airport to say that primaries have been held. They just cooked off figures. The same thing in Anambra. APC said they did direct primary. Andy Uba allegedly scored 320,000 votes.
So would you say that
at the general election, what did they score?
So would you say that the amendment should have addressed these things that you are just
wait,
now?
what I'm saying, why I'm explaining this is that when you look at nomination fee, you look at the screening powers of the party, then the issue of primary itself is number 3 on the list. Then you do this primary in a wishy-washy manner. Section 31 sub 1 of the extant electoral law already said that INEC has no role in who the nominee of the party is. Why? Because it has ousted all. The only thing that the law still recognizes INEC to do is to observe, that it should be given 21 days and observe. But it doesn't say that the report of INEC has any value in saying this is the right or wrong candidate. But let's leave the issue of primary. Let me come to the number 4. The number 4 is the actual nomination of the candidate. Did you know that you may not even participate in the primaries and become the candidate of the party? Did you know that? Because there is a window that is given by law to say, look, you can withdraw from the race of your own accord. Just make sure that your withdrawal is before 45 days to the election. You can write a resignation letter to say you are no longer interested in going through the race. Or if death comes and somebody dies, as was the case in Kogi.
Yes.
Now, these party gatekeepers are also using the opportunity to wrongly substituted candidate that has even emerged from the primaries. So I'm saying, forget about direct or indirect. It's not where the challenge is. It is in the operators of the political system. So you saw in Anambra, November 6th election, there's a young man who just turned 56, Obiora Okonkwo, who owns United Airlines. The man was a member of PDP. When he lost in the primaries, he went to Zenith Labour Party. Meanwhile, at that time he went to Zenith Labour Party. Zenith Labour Party already had its primary, as already somebody that is presumably the winner of the primary. Yes. But they pressured the person and substituted him with Obiora Okonkwo. Similarly, it happened in Ondo when Agbola Ajayi, the former deputy governor to Akeredolu, also left APC, went to PDP, contested with Jegede in PDP, lost in the PDP primaries, only for him to become the candidate of Zenith Labour Party in Ondo State. Somebody earlier was nominated. So, how did that happen? So what I'm saying is that looking at this value chain from nomination fee to screening of the candidate, of the aspirant, to the actual conduct of the primary, that in itself is a different ballgame. Ask INEC people. These people will tell you, we are going to do primary on so date. 2 days to that day, they will shift the date. If they don't shift the date, they will shift the time. Something that is supposed to start in the 10 a.m., they may shift it to 12 midnight. That's what happened to Professor Patti told me when he wanted to contest in Delta State for governorship. He couldn't even, they didn't even communicate the venue of the primary to him. So all manner of shenanigans happen in the primary process.
Do you think that, failure to also address these issues that you have raised, kind of counters or I would say renders the amendments in the Electoral Act counterproductive?
No, No, not necessarily. My own point is this. Let's deal with the issue holistically. You cannot legislate everything into law. These are attitudinal issues I'm raising. I'm not saying legally. Okay, the good intention of the law is that somebody can withdraw from the race, isn't it? And you can change your mind, actually.
Yes, so maybe it should be
somebody will use that. They will just put, look at Tambuwa. Tambuwa, if you recall, went to contest for the presidency, I think, of PDP or APC. He lost. When he lost, as at the time he went to contest for the presidency, the presidential ticket, he was not an aspirant to the governorship. Now, when he lost, somebody had already emerged in Sokoto as the candidate of PDP. But because they put their protege there, somebody they can easily, maybe one of their aides, they will say, go and hold the ticket for me. So if I fail to get this higher one, I'll come back. You just say, okay, take this 20 million, settle him, then you are replaced. You didn't participate in the primary. So what I'm saying is, it's an attitudinal issue. It's an issue that has to do with internal party democracy. And you cannot legislate that. Even the best of law, if you don't have the right mindset, you will not get it right. Okay. So I'm not even saying go and reform and revise the law, but let's do the right thing as party gatekeepers. The reason why many of the parties are scared of direct primary, let me tell you, in good conscience, they don't have credible register.
Okay, now let's talk about.
They do not have membership.
Let's talk about electronic, transmission of results. Yeah. Isn't this is going to be kind of like a game changer, for the whole political?
It should be a game changer, but mark you, it's going to be operated by human beings. In Kenya in 2017, they tried to do electronic transmission of results. That was what led to the nullification of that election, presidential election, by the judiciary, by the Supreme Court of Kenya, over issue of the discrepancy between the result that were transmitted and the result that was manually collated. But something happened ahead of that. The head of ICT in the Kenya Electoral Commission was murdered. Couple of days to the election. The man holds the key to the password and everything. They just assassinated him. At the end of the day, they were able to either hack or whatever the server and inputted wrong field. So I'm telling you, what we are up against, Ajia, is not the law. It is the attitude, desperate attitude of politicians who want to win at all costs. And the president should not play to their antics. Let me tell you the truth about this whole issue about direct primary. I come back to it. One, many of the parties don't have credible membership register. Two, they are saying that the actual reason why the National Assembly decided to take that route was because 22 APC governors will be many of them will be serving out their terms in 2023, and they want to come to Senate. The current senators want to retain their position, and they felt that already in APC, I'm telling you the gist too, already in APC, with the congresses that have held at the ward, local government and state level, it has been manipulated by the governors. They already have packed their loyalists into those positions. And these are the same people who are going to conduct the primaries. So if they allow them, I read something in the papers yesterday that Niger State is going to appoint 4,000 plus aides. All these aides will become super delegates in an indirect primary. Do you understand? So the odds are already against your opponent. And that means because the loyalists have already been planted by the governors at the ward level, at the local government level, at the state level during the congresses, don't forget that a ward chairman, the smallest political unit in every democracy, can suspend the president, of a country from the party, because you all register from the ward. That is what happened to Adams Oshiomhole when his ward chairman suspended him. He said,
and he affected his national presidency.
And he had affected his national chairmanship. The same thing with Uche Secondus. When is the same thing with even the
but do you think that that's also another strategy, by, say, for instance, state governors, to deal with, people who they consider maybe more powerful than they are politically in the
This is
state.
what they want to do. They already have packed these party executives with their loyalists. And that's why they use wrongfully, abuse grossly the consensus option in their party constitution.
Which is my next question.
So all the governors have sat down, wrote list of their loyalists, put them at the ward level, at the local government level, at the state level. These are the people who are going to contest, who are going to conduct the primary. And when they conduct the primary, don't forget the earlier phases I've told you. They will put the nomination fee very high. So only very powerful people will be able to pay. Then they will set up screening committee made up of this loyalist. So the loyalist of the governor, when Nadia files nomination as an aspirant, he just say, this one, anti-party. They will just come up with something. They may say tax clearance. They may say your certificate is Ajia. It should be H-A-J-I-Y-A and not H-A-J-A-I. So, all manner of subterfuge. Look at what happened with Obaseki now. Because they don't want to give the ticket to Obaseki. They screened him out. A sitting governor who you screened in 2016 gave the ticket. You now said the certificate at K-leg. At the end of the day, the guy has to fight his way up to Supreme Court. As the Supreme Court nullified his candidacy, the answer is no. But because these are landmines that these political gatekeepers always plant, and because of the politics of 2023, that's why. And I'm saying, even the reasoning of the National Assembly is very shallow in boxing the nation or the political system into just one mode of party primary. They should just have left Section 87 the way it is, because that is not the problematic section. The problem runs across different stages.
Okay, one other provision in that act is that it's saying that it is that all aspirants must be given equal opportunity of being voted for by members of the party, and given opportunity to have agents for the purpose of monitoring the primaries. So you don't think that this doesn't take care of the concept of the consensus thing that we see?
Forget. See, let me tell you the truth. Even the direct primary that was held for the President Buhari to emerge in 2018 ahead of 2019 election was doctored, was padded. They said the president scored 14,800,000 and something votes in the direct primaries that was conducted. Remember, he was the only candidate. He was the only aspirant in 2018. Unlike in 2015, when there were 5 of them, Kwakwanso, Bukola Saraki, and then Turaki, Adamawa, Dasateko, about 5 of them that contested in Lagos before he eventually won. In 2018, the nomination fee was 45 million. In 2014, ahead of 2015, the nomination fee was put at 27 million. Buhari said he doesn't have the money to buy. He has to go and take overdraft from his bankers, to be able to pay 27 million. And he was quoted as saying, this is true astronomy, in 2014. In 2018, when he was going to the contest, he paid 45 million. Although they said, some governors said they were the one that bought him the form, Yaya Bello and some people. But what I'm saying is that look at how they price it out of the reach of ordinary contestants. But that is not even the core of the challenge. The core of the challenge now is that if a president scored 14,800,000 votes in the direct primaries, how come in the general election involving over 80 million Nigeria, he now scored 15 million? How come? 15 million. So is it only out of all the members of the APC, is it only additional 200,000 or 300,000 that voted for him? It shows, and that's why I'm pointing you in the direction of what happened in Anambra, where Andy Uba, a senator, was said to have scored 320,000 votes in a direct primary, but in the general election he scored 43,000. How do you reconcile those figures if it's not just arbitrary, if it's not just doctored? So forget about the issue of you have party agents. In the general election, don't they give them opportunity to have party agents? How many contestants will field party agents across the nooks and crannies of Nigeria? Let me tell you, in a presidential party primaries, let me put it to you, Ayuba. In the presidential party primary, assuming without considering that each of the parties decided to do the primary, direct primary at the ward level, do you know how many wards we have? We have 8,809 wards. Then, if you now want to field party agents across the 8,809 wards, assuming you are giving them 5,000 naira, for, I'm just saying
logistics.
For logistics, maybe 5, some could give 10, multiply that. And that's just for primary. You have not factored nomination form. You have not factored the cost of campaign. So at the end of the day, let's stop deceiving ourselves. Our problem is attitudinal, more attitudinal than legal. Okay. Because the operators of the system are human beings.
Right.
And they can do and undo. Like I told you with electronic transmission, even before INEC does this electronic transmission, have they not been trying to hack the data base of INEC?
Okay. Now, before we wrap up the discussion, with all these intricacies, all the issues we've highlighted now, shouldn't there be like a cut down on the cost of governance in Nigeria?
Exactly, but how best can we do that? The operators of the system does not want it. I want it. I have advocated for it. The president of the Senate yesterday delivered a paper at one of the NIS organized program, and he was saying that the National Assembly is grossly underfunded, they need more money and all of that. But the question is do we need the number of members of National Assembly? 469 of them. Let's draw an example from US. US has 50 states. Did you know that each of the US states, big or small, whether you are big like California, New York, or Texas, or you are small like Vermont, Kansas, Delaware, and all of that, you all have 2 senators. So in the US Senate, they only have 100 senators. Why are we having 109 senators? Italy just last year promulgated a law reducing the size of its National Assembly by 1/3. Both the Senate and House of Reps. That is the kind of example we can follow. Mauritania, Senegal in 2012 decided to do away with their Senate. They want unicameral. Why can't we copy that? Why shouldn't we amend section 147 sub 3 of the Constitution that says that the president must, not must, shall, that's the right word, shall appoint not less than 1 person. It even put that, not less than 1 person from every state. So the president in 2015 appointed 37 ministers to run his first tenure. But the same president came back in 2019 and appointed 43 ministers. On what basis? What was the justification? Because the law says he will appoint at least one minister from every state. And I ask myself, in US, they have only 15 secretaries. You know who secretaries are in US? They are equivalent of our ministers. 15! Running a country of over 350 million population. We are 206 million estimated. Do we need 43 cabinet ministers? With quotary of aides and special assistants, special advisors, senior special. No. So we need to cut the cost of governance.
Right.
If we are serious as a country, that's why many people, when we go borrowing, they look at us as very unserious country. Because look at it, let me land on this camp. Who should be borrowing from where? Nigeria goes to China with population of 1.3 billion to go and borrow money to fix its national infrastructure. Nigeria is a country of 206 million estimated. Who should be going to borrow from where? So the problem with us is we are wasteful a country. We are a very wasteful country unless we decide consciously, using the legal framework, using administrative fiat, using policy to reduce consciously the cost of governance in Nigeria. Forget.
Okay, we hope, the whole situation turns out for the better. Thank you so much for coming on the program. We've been speaking with public affairs analyst Jide Ojo, giving us some perspectives, on the issue, the conversation around the whole Electoral Act amendment bill.
Yeah. All right. For now, let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll take a look at the aviation sector and have a kind of a spotlight on that sector, especially with respect to recent travel restrictions, from across the country. Please stay with us.
All right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television. Now, the World Health Organization declared the COVID-19 outbreak a global pandemic more than 18 months ago. Since then, daily life across the globe has changed. Practically all aspects of economic and social activity were immediately disrupted by the pandemic, and many aspects still are disrupted. By November 2021, around 5 million people throughout the world had died as a result of COVID-19 infections, and at least 240 million people had been infected. Now, the air transport ecosystem and the airport sector in particular are again among the industries most affected by the COVID health crisis due to the industry's global nature. According to the International Air Transport Association, the global aviation industry is estimated to lose $201 billion between 2020 and 2022 due to the COVID-19 crisis before returning to profitability in 2023. Now, to give us some perspectives in regards to this, we have Godi K, an aviation expert, with us here in the studio this morning. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, now, let's begin with the recent row between Nigeria and the UAE. Is this a case of COVID-19 or aeropolitics? You know, as an expert that watches and follows all these stories, what's your perspectives?
More of aeropolitics than effect of COVID-19. You would recall that at the time in the history of this nation, we had the awesome Nigeria Airways that was doing really, really very well. At a point, we had about 32 airplanes, and to tell you the truth, this same UAE that is insulting Nigeria today, the very first airplane they used, even to carry their leader, or rather leaders out there, was given to them by Nigeria through the magnanimity of Nigeria Airways. That is an undeniable, piece of history.
Mm-hmm. So how has the mighty fallen?
Oh yeah, yeah. You can say that again.
I mean, how did the giants fall asleep?
You can really say that again.
And we're here now.
I want to admit that if you've been following my platform, I have this aviation club platform on WhatsApp. Yesterday, a whole lot of comments were coming. After they saw my take on this whole thing, going on now. I want to admit that UAE borrowed a whole lot of money to develop, but every dollar they borrowed went into something very useful. We as a people of the nation have also borrowed so much, but you can hardly point your finger at where those kind of, I'm not saying that there are not developments here and there, but the kind of money we're talking about, you can point your finger at where you can say this is where the money is. So we haven't done well, and that's what is attracting this kind of insult, to us. But the real fact of it is, answering your question more directly, it's more of aeropolitics than issue of the coronavirus pandemic. For instance, WHO made it clear to the world that 46% of cases you find in Africa, the whole of Africa, not just about Nigeria, and then the open 54% reside in Europe, America, and Asia. Now, where's the moral grounds for anyone to point finger at any nation within Africa to say, I won't let you in, because when in reality, these other areas have more cases and have more deaths than we do have here. So if there's anybody that should reject anyone, we should be the one rejecting people, not people rejecting us.
Okay, so is it that
yes,
through the years we have been adopting the wrong, strategies, to protect, our local airlines?
Part of it, but then again, as soon as we went wrong with the national carrier, the Nigeria Airways, we began to slide down the hill, and until we hit
the
bottom. And that's where we seem to be at the moment now. But again, the good thing about diplomacy, and then especially the aviation sector, is that any vessel, not even only about airlines, even in shipping, any vessel you hoist your flag, it's your vessel, even if it doesn't belong to you in all reality. Even if you hired or leased it and you paid money to have it have your flag go from one point to the other, that vessel answers your name. So what am I saying? If Nigeria allows an airline such as Air Peace, for instance, to fly its flag, it's as good as Nigeria Airways. That is Nigeria there. And so there's no moral grounds for UAE to keep enjoying. How many slots was that the Honorable Minister told us? Was it 20?
21 slots.
21 slots. And then you have a Nigerian airline asking for just 3. And you say, no.
All right, let's talk about, I want us to really, lay a very good background in terms of how we got here.
Okay.
Talking about the Nigerian Airways, would you say that these are is it a similar kind of politics that, that made the Nigerian Airways went down?
No.
Or what happened?
No,
Maybe just give us a highlight of, how the Nigerian Airways today is nowhere.
Yeah, and as soon as we're done with this, I'll also give you my YouTube channel, because I have over 200 30-minute videos on different topics, researched and published topics on YouTube. You just remember to get the channel, so you go and see the rise and fall of Nigeria Airways. I did a very exhaustive and thorough investigation of what went wrong, and the irony of it is that as a young businessman, way back between the late 80s and the middle 90s, I flew Nigeria Airways fortnightly to London. I did. I was one of their very good customers. As a matter of fact, at Apapa Airport office, the Nigeria Airways office at Apapa, Lagos, I was known there and nicknamed Must Fly. I'm laying this background for you to understand what went wrong with Nigeria Airways. I was named there Must Fly. Now, what does that mean to you now? Or what did it mean at that time? Anytime I walked in, they looked through the system. They said, "Oh, you can see the entire place was filled. The airplane was filled." But then you find one staff whispering to the other, another whispering to the other, and as they get around, in a moment, they had a ticket for me. As soon as I walk through their door, they say, "Oh, Must Fly is here," and then I'll come. They start milling around and whispering to each other. I'm going to tell you the meaning of those whispering as they went on. And then they found me a ticket, and I traveled. Now, we watched Nigeria Airways go down, even though the world recognized the pilots of Nigeria Airways and did announce it then that they were the best and the safest in the world. Yes,
remarkable.
Nigeria Airways pilots were said to be the best and the safest in the world.
And these were Nigerians.
Remarkable.
Nigerians. And so, we now found a situation where sometimes, like one of the incidents that I was also involved in, we went to Heathrow to fly back to Lagos, and they said the plane went for some checks in one of the European countries there, and for 3 days running, no information went out to anyone to say, please don't come to the airport. So people who had flights, for instance, on a Thursday night were there, they didn't fly, and they were littered there in the airport. Those that had Friday to fly, no information went out. That to show you the level of irresponsibility that went on at the time. And then on Saturday, the whole Heathrow airport was littered with stranded Nigerians, and then it was chaotic.
And these people were booked, to travel.
Booked to
despite
travel.
the issues that
booked to travel. Now, when eventually I decided to really dig deep into the aviation sector and I began to research and publish my findings, I found out that Nigeria Airways, 80% of the seats were occupied by staff of the Nigeria Airways who paid nothing to be in there. Government officials who paid nothing to get on the flight. So at every point in time that they made that very expensive trip of moving from Lagos and traveling about 5 hours or thereabout to UK, and spending close to $200,000 in both fueling, cost of the crew, and all the other things that they served in the airplane. And an average trip of such a jumbo jet will not be less than $200,000 US. But 80% of the seats that were raking the cash to offset all those and then look for profit were occupied by non-paying passengers. So I realized that at the time they were singing the song of Must Fly, a young, vibrant businessman that was always flying them, you know, and so they quickly recognized me and gave me a nickname, Must Fly. So each time I got there and they said, oh, there were no seats, I said, no, I must fly. Find me a seat. I now realized that what they were doing was negotiating with those that were going to go for the weekend shopping for Balogu market. You know, all those stuff they bought from, you know, from London, you know, for sales, like clothing and the rest of them, you know. So they were negotiating amongst themselves who would drop for that weekend.
So that Must Fly will fly.
Just so that Must Fly will fly. And then the money, yes, you won't believe it, but this is real life story, not told by anybody else, but by the man who was involved and who was there, and who, by some providence, you know, is an aviation researcher and publisher, you know, today. Now, so the money I paid didn't get into the coffers of Nigeria Airways. It got into the coffers of the individual whose ticket had been passed on to me and changed in the system to my name.
So much corruption.
So that's clear case of corruption here.
Absolutely. Extreme corruption and irresponsibility.
All right, now today we do not have the Nigerian Airways, and the government is making efforts, you know, to revive, you know, that airline.
Yes.
All right, but we are also dealing with having to protect local airline companies like the Air Peace.
Yes, sir.
But again, some are criticizing the government for taking the stand that they did, because they're saying that, look, Nigeria is going to lose a lot of money as a result of this step, you know. But again, on the other side, the government is making efforts to protect, you know, companies like, you know, Air Peace. So we seem to be in a dilemma here, isn't it? What's your thoughts on that?
For once, I stand with the government, and I stand with Honorable Minister Hadi Serika in that decision to call the bluff of not only the UAE but the rest of the countries of the world that are pointing fingers at Nigeria as if coronavirus or the Omicron they are talking about today, you know, has a mansion and resides here in Nigeria.
But you do not consider those who say that Nigeria is going to be more at loss in this case than UAE?
One thing you must find out and you must realize is that there is no country in the world where money is made as easily as it's made in Nigeria, especially by foreigners who come here to do business. There is nowhere in the world the kind of money made in Nigeria exists. It doesn't exist anywhere in the world. I mean, in places where you think you have the numbers, say for instance in the United States of America, regulations will not let these business or so-called foreign investors make the kind of money they make in Nigeria. These individuals need us as a people and as a nation more than we need them.
Okay, so are you saying this is not going to, affect the federal government in the sense that there's a tax, payable on each flight?
No, the point is for UAE that's enjoying 21 frequencies to Nigeria. Nigeria is simply asking, give our airpiece 3, and they say no, they won't do that. The business of diplomacy is a business of tit for tat.
Right.
Is also a business of if you rob my back, I rob yours. That's the way it works. Now, it is big-headed and extremely arrogant of UAE to look Nigeria in the eyes and say, no, we can give you 3 slots when you are enjoying 21 in this place. To tell you the truth, I understand if what I saw on my platform that somebody posted is correct, that they have also said that other airlines will not be allowed to bring Nigerians into the UAE. And I am saying, let's call it bluff. They can't sustain that for another month. You know why? In my assessment, UAE is also living on borrowed money. Those, yes, granted, I want to grant that they invested the money they borrowed thoroughly well, which is what we are seeing in terms of infrastructural development on ground that you can see, and everything and things are going on. But they still need the daily turnover, the weekly turnover, the monthly turnover. So
if they do not, reverse their decision, what about Nigerians that have businesses in the UAE, that are now stranded, as a result of this?
Yes,
the losses that they are going to incur as a result of this. Who is going to pay for that?
We are as stranded as they are, and if you ask me, in my opinion, they are more stranded than we are. It's just a matter of what's the word I'm looking for right now? Bracing up for whatever is the outfall of this and calling their bluff. Because you see, if we don't sustain this attitude of calling their bluff, a whole lot of nations will take their own bite at us. A whole lot are standing by to take their own bite. And you're going to see even banana islands, and I mean, what I mean is much smaller nations which economy cannot match just a single state of Lagos State in Nigeria, look us in the eyes and say, hey, you're not coming here except this or that, that sort of a thing. Time comes when a nation makes a decision to pay the price it takes to restore its dignity and restore its economy. Listen, if we were able to say to ourselves, let's even set out to recover looted monies. They're littered everywhere. We see them everywhere, even within Abuja here. You see a lot of.
But don't you consider it as cosmetics? If we within us do not respect our laws, we do not respect ourselves. Corruption, like you mentioned, made that areas went down. How would other countries?
That's why we need
have respect for us.
Yes, you are totally correct. It hurts me personally. It hurts me that this is what we have done to ourselves, and this is where we are with the acts of irresponsibility in high places that we need to put an end to, and then pretending that we do not know where the looted funds are. For goodness sake, we know where these monies are. If we want to get them back, we can get them back.
Okay.
Yeah. So I am not subscribing to giving to blackmail and giving into this sort of insult that's coming from UAE.
Okay.
Because people will lose business. There will always be a way to identify those that have been hit hard. If you know what I'm even suggesting, Nigeria should find a way to have people who have invested so much in UAE move their investments out of UAE, and there's a way it can be done. That is a different ball game that I'm not going to tell anyone, publicly. If they want to know more, they should consult me.
Right.
And then I tell them how you can sit here, move those investments out, and then sort out the people that are affected internally. It is a turning point for Nigeria.
Right.
We can stand on this turning point and rebuild Nigeria.
Okay, now quickly.
That's my ambition, and that's what I think we should do.
Okay, so quickly before we go,
Yes.
as you've just mentioned, UAE also has stands to lose a lot. About 270 million in a week if this is sustained. But do you think this is going to go on for long?
It depends on UAE, if you ask me. The Honorable Minister Hadi Sirika was clear about his language. We can't give you 21 and ask you for a mega 3, and you won't let us have 3. Then, if it's only one that we deserve, then we give you one also. You do only one. And then they come up with the idea of, okay, we're not even doing any. And then other airlines that could take, for instance, British Airways can take you all the way to London, and then from London to UAE, and then South African Airways the same, take you to whatever. They have their main airport in South Africa, and Kenyan, can take you to Nairobi, and then from Nairobi, yes, you fly all the way 4.5 hours backwards, and then another 8 to 9 hours forward. It's more time you spend, isn't it?
Right.
But ultimately you get to your destination, isn't it? Now the UAE administration now says no airline in the world is permitted to bring any Nigerian to UAE. That is an overkill, and believe you me, my opinion is that we should call their bluff, stand our ground. They are going to come begging soon. Very honestly.
I hope to see that.
Yes, they are going to come begging soon, because they can't sustain this battle they just started. And to tell you what, they can't win. For us, it's a turning point. If Nigerian government will look inwards, harness what needs to be harnessed, do the diplomatic business that needs to be done, and make contacts with other friends of Nigeria, organize ourselves a little better, take care of those that have been identified to have genuinely suffered from this situation. Believe you me, Nigeria can successfully move all the investments in the UAE out of UAE without visiting UAE.
Okay.
It's a global world we are.
Right.
If anybody wants to know how this can be done, consult me.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the program and sharing your perspectives with us. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to having you again.
Well, thank you very much. Yes. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right. Well, with that, we've been speaking with Gordy Ike. He's an aviation expert and giving us perspectives on recent happenings in the aviation sector. Well, this Cold War between Nigeria and the UAE. Now, with that, we'll wrap up the show for today. Join us again another time. That's tomorrow morning on the program, as we continue to spotlight all the major stories and the major issues in the country and within the country. My name is Ayuelia.
And I'm Zainab Bana. Thank you for watching.
Bye.